This is Dance As Us, a series of podcasts produced and presented by ÄÄFSFINMalta during the COVID-19 crisis. The program aims to highlight the myriad ways dance features in our lives, reminding us that everyone has a relationship with movement and everyone has an experience of dance. It's also an opportunity to draw on the opinions, ideas and perspectives of the many voices in our cultural ecology. We've been talking to dancers and choreographers, as well as artists working in other disciplines, policymakers, curators, writers, directors and thinkers. In week 9 of Dance As Us, it seems fitting to conclude with the theme Alliance. A flourishing art scene is the result of collaboration, co-production, knowledge sharing and partnerships, whether working at a local or global level. In Malta, we seem to be witnessing a growing number of new initiatives, collectives and co-working spaces, where creative communities gather for support, to generate ideas and for sharing and combining resources. Historically, during an emergency like this, societies heal through the strength of people coming together in solidarity. With social distancing in place, what does alliance look like in our present world? So to discuss this theme and answer some of these questions, I've got 3 people with me today, and I'm very happy to welcome them: Teodor Reljić, Elyse Tonna and Diane Portelli. So just to give you a quick background, Teo was born in Belgrade and raised in Malta. He writes fiction across various formats and has been serving as culture editor and film critic at MaltaToday for over a decade. His debut novel, 2, was published by Merlin in 2014 and shortlisted for Malta's National Book Prize in 2015. His short film, Camilla, co-written with director Stephanie Sant, premiered in 2018 after winning the National Book Council's Literary Short Film Competition. Elyse is an architect and aspiring curator. She's currently completing an MA in Cultural Heritage Management. Her curatorial practice spans contemporary art practice and both community-based and socially engaged projects. She's involved with many collectives and committees, both locally and abroad, and is curator and co-creative director of the Gabrielle Caruana Foundation. She's co-host of Club Malta and a fellow of the Salzburg Global Forum. Diane Portelli is a director, dancer and choreographer. As a dancer, Diane is trained in classical ballet, modern, contemporary and flamenco, and attended courses and workshops with renowned dance companies, including Random Dance Company, Ultima Vez and Hofer Schechter. She participated in the World Championships for Performing Arts in Hollywood and has performed in international festivals in Portugal, Hong Kong, Tunisia, Washington and Brussels. Diane joined Malta's Moveo dance company in 2013 as a dancer and choreographer, and she's now one of 2 directors. So welcome everyone. Thank you for agreeing to participate in this podcast. It's lovely to see your faces on Zoom. I'm beginning each interview with the same question. So perhaps we'll start with Diane. What's your earliest or most vivid memory of dance?
I think my earliest, I was actually around 6 years old. It was Tanya Bayona's annual school show, and it was a big one. It was at the Mediterranean Conference Center. And I was meant to be a little teapot, and I actually got very severe stage fright. I was 6 and I just refused to go on stage. And there was a soprano, there was Miriam Gauci, who was in the theater, and I remember she picked me up and put me on the piano. They called my mom, and my mom was like, why doesn't she want to go on stage? And Miriam actually looked at my mom and said, well, she's one of the few children who actually understand, what being on stage is all about already. And she had a little chat with me, and I got really excited, and I ended up going to do my little teapot dance in ballet. That's my earliest memory.
Good. Pushing through stage fright at a very young age. That's good to tick that box early. What about you, Teo?
My earliest memory of dance is, I think, my current memory of dance, which is skulking away in terror away from it. I do not identify with dance at all, and I'm exactly the wrong person for this podcast, I think. But I think that's something I need to sort out with my therapist rather than here. So, In the interest of brevity as well, I'll leave it at that, I think.
Okay, maybe we'll come back to that one another day.
Yeah.
Elyse?
I think something that a lot of people don't know, but I used to actually dance as well. I started at the age of 3, and I spent till I was about 9 or 10. I stopped because I had to take the decision of what I am going to choose, whether it was sport or music or dance. And I chose sport over dance and kept music. So quite a few memories actually, and it was a place where I met my cousins, for example, because we all used to dance. I loved being on stage. Now I actually hate it, so I don't know where I lost myself in the process. But I used to really enjoy it. Was I let out a lot of emotions, I think, when I actually used to dance. It's a pity that I stopped, and it's possibly one of my biggest regrets, but it's okay.
Unfulfilled dream. It's high.
Yes.
Yeah. Just on the topic of alliance, in the introduction, you know, I was using words like collaboration and collective. Just coming back to that, I'm wondering if you can give me an example of when a collaboration or a collective experience has had some kind of formative or profound effect on your own work. Elyse, perhaps?
Yes. On a professional level, I would say I think the most impactful project I've worked on, which has had the most significant contribution related to collaboration, was Hosel Sayas. We were around 4, I think. So there was myself, Rafaela, a foreign institution, Instrument Inventors Initiative, Andrea Policino, there was Mighty Box, and everyone had different roles, which were very varied from each other, but at the same time we were contributing to one cause, which was ultimately an exhibition which we had to produce. And even though there was the problem with an issue with distance, because there were Instrument Inventors Initiative who were collaborating from the Netherlands, it was very impactful. We felt it throughout. So, and like our post-mortem, we were like, this was worth it. This was very significant, and it played a role on how we can actually collaborate. There were lots of lessons learned, and it was very successful even in the final product produced. That was possibly one of the projects that was very strong on the collaborative aspect, I should say.
Mm. And Diane, so from the perspective of your dance company, perhaps, you know, how does this question resonate with you?
Well, with us being a small company and a company that obviously has very limited resources, we actually rely a lot on collaborations and alliances with other artists, with other entities. We had a very, very interesting meeting, you could say, which happened through a project we did in Denmark. A couple of years ago, we were involved in a freedom prison project in Denmark, where we were performing in an old prison that was converted into a creative center. And over there, we actually met, I think, over 100 artists, international artists. And by chance, we ended up, well, part of the deal was that we did our performances, and at the end, all the artists had to create one performance together, which was directed by a Danish director. And we got paired up with a company from Romania, from Timișoara. And now one of the artists from the Romanian company is one of our tour directors for Eastern Europe. So we created a very, very strong bond over there. We ended up, she organized our tour last year in Hungary. We did Budapest, Bucharest, and Timișoara. Dorian actually goes up and gives workshops now in Timișoara, I think biannually. and we're probably organizing another big project when social distancing and travel is allowed again. So I think that was one of the most significant alliances we made.
Theo, in your work, it's extremely collaborative, isn't it? Especially when it's coming to sort of script writing and working on film.
Yeah, absolutely. You learn very quickly how much collaboration becomes not just a nice extra or bouncing off ideas. It's something that you have to consider on a very deep and direct level. And I would say, yes, my most significant instance of collaboration and alliance is one that's still going on with my producing partner Martin Bonici of Shadeen Entertainment, with whom I'm involved in a number of projects. Camilla was one of them, but we're now working on a feature film. So the script writing side of that has been more or less taken care of. There's still some work to be done. But even though Martin works in a very classic way, in the sense of, scriptwriter is not allowed on set, and you don't interfere with the director's work luckily he is one of the good producers because he's also a producer who is very hands-on on the creative side of things. So he's not just someone who takes care of the very important logistical and financial considerations, but also somebody who helps you shape the story. So it was I really appreciate having had someone like that to work with. And I think it's even other things I do, like comic book writing, for example, where you have to have a very close relationship with the artist as much as possible in terms of knowing what they're like, knowing what their schedule is like, and how they, the rhythm of their work and so on. So I think it's something that's, a lot of creatives do have to consider on a very regular basis. I think the idea that we can be, solitary artists just creating in our own ivory tower is a bit of a mistaken assumption, even for something like writing. I mean, even if when it comes to prose writing, you're always talking to at least an editor or a publisher, and eventually you'll be talking to an audience and beta readers and people who give you feedback. So I think it's not something that's special or extra in that sense. It's actually something that needs to be baked into the process if you want the end result to be a healthy and fully formed one, I would say.
Yeah, excellent. Just earlier, in my earlier statement, I suggested that in Malta, we're witnessing a growing number of new initiatives and collectives and even co-working spaces where our creative communities are beginning to gather for support and to combine and share resources. Assuming you agree with this statement, are you seeing that they're changing the landscape of the creative and cultural sectors in Malta? I know, like, for example, Elyse, you've recently set up the Creative and Cultural Community Malta group on Facebook. Can you perhaps tell us why you set that up?
Yes, obviously we're going through COVID and all that. And initially I set up the group because I realized there was nothing which brings like creative and cultural practitioners together. So I was like, I had this gut feeling. I was like, might as well try and set up the most simple form of collaborative group and set up a Facebook group just to bring everyone together. It was basically a response to a lot of my friends are obviously involved in film, and they were posting on their individual walls asking for feedback and asking for support, especially when they were left out of the NACE code, that whole saga. And I was like, some of them were not receiving any form of feedback or support. So I was like, okay, let's try and bring everyone together and attempt to at least start pushing this notion that you can ask for advice, you can seek other collaborators. It's just a start. I mean, so far it hasn't functioned in a way where there are a lot of people posting for, I don't know, collaborators and whatnot. However, that's the whole intention, that it brings people to discuss on an online platform and facilitates this discussion, basically. I'd like it to grow in a sense that people are not afraid to actually voice opinions. It has been done in the past few weeks, rather than just being a place where people advertise what they're doing. It could be a platform where discussions and constructive criticism on whatever is going on can happen, basically. That's the whole notion of the group.
You're also involved in a number of other collectives and communities. Are there some other examples there of where you're seeing the effect on the creative and cultural sector in Malta?
Yes, for sure. I'm involved in the Gabriel Caruana Foundation, and as a foundation, we also, like Moveo, like Diane said, we also highly depend on collaborations, even to like facilitate certain projects. I mean, we are mostly focused on contemporary art. However, we try to diversify as much as possible all the projects and even the artists we collaborate with. And also, Rafael and myself, it started purely as a collaboration. So I have just been engaged with the Gabriel Caruana Foundation. We started off simply by collaborating on a project. So that's something that was successful in a way. I'm also involved in this on a more international scale in the Salzburg Global Forum, where even throughout these past few weeks, we have been meeting to kind of facilitate the discussion on how we can adapt to these diversified times, so to say. So you get people from all around the world giving feedback on different situations related to the culture and creative sectors. I'm also involved in ACT, and the most recent collaboration was the one with Gabriel Caruana Foundation, so I had to kind of wear two hats at the same time. But it was very insightful to see how an organization which has other different facets to it, so you have environment, you have health, collaborating with a purely artistic organization. So that was very exciting to see. It was quite an exciting operation to see happening. So yes, I thoroughly believe that collaboration is key. I try to collaborate even on a personal level for personal projects, possibly also due to the nature of my practice as a curator. I am very much a collaborative inclined person, so to say.
Yeah. Diane or Teo, is there anything more you would add to this?
Well, from our point of view, obviously we have quite a diverse repertoire, so we've actually reached out to quite a few entities throughout the course, of the years. I mean, we had an extremely interesting collaboration with the biomedical engineering department at university, where we actually created a project based on EEG headsets. And it was an audience-driven performance, and it was something that grew to the point that now we don't need any, scientific advice. We're comfortable enough to just call each other and give each other advice. And, we teamed up with Greenhouse, who are an NGO, and we created a production based on the Maltese honeybee, Forest Flora, and the same thing, getting that inside scientific knowledge that we lacked from an artist, we had the artist point of view, and they gave the expertise, the scientific expertise. I think makes it a lot more holistic performance, and a lot more honest one, so to speak. So we're constantly reaching out to different entities to see, how we can help each other and create things together on different levels.
Yeah, so the interdisciplinary collaborations are sort of coming through here, the importance of that, and also the longevity of these relationships and the impact. And I guess that's where the word alliance comes in, that it really sort of solidifies the sector and the diversity that can take place. Teo, in your industry, do you see a lot of interdisciplinary collaboration?
Well, if we're talking about film, I mean, it's interdisciplinary by definition. But again, that is something that the producer often takes care of in terms of roping in the relevant, players to come in. But of course, given that realistically speaking, we will be dealing for at least the foreseeable future with kind of like a low budget scenario, even as a scriptwriter. It would not be wise for me to write in, a giant Godzilla monster scene at this stage. So, you bear things in mind, and you work with the limitations that you're given, and then you kind of create according to that. But speaking of the sort of budget aspect of it, one example of collaboration, which I think very directly feeds into or reacts to the Maltese scene in particular, is my unofficial ongoing collaboration with the burlesque group that I had helped set up with Nicole back in 2009. And we had organized several burlesque shows since then. We had a sort of comeback show exactly 2 years ago to the day at City Lights in Valletta. And that was actually that was set up in response to the theater scene, and how at that moment it seemed to have lacked a sort of an entertainment aspect that wasn't just those common denominator. It wasn't just panto or stuff like that, but that had a certain degree of sophistication and irony to it, but it wasn't plays at the manual theater or just plays based off classic text and so on. So and that attracted precisely Maltese actors who wanted to do something a bit less self-conscious and a bit more fun, and who wanted to do original material. So I wrote sketches, and I even performed in some of them. So that was very kind of low budget, almost no budget at a certain point, and that's when the resourcefulness of collaboration comes in. And I'm proud to say that we seem to have kind of kicked off a sort of something that resembles fringe theater from then on. After we had, there were examples of similar stuff happening. So I think safety in numbers was what helped us there. So I think there you see the kind of the impact of collaboration in a very direct sense, and that's when the interdisciplinary aspect came in a very strong way, because you had, okay, I know somebody who can do music, I know somebody who performs, I know somebody who can do sound design for us, So and in a smaller community like Malta, I think it's relatively easy to solidify your network and make that possible. So I think that's a positive thing that we can take from there.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about Diane in terms of a dance company. Certainly, alliance, solidarity. It's a company and a group of dancers who are together. It's almost like a family, isn't it? There's some very intense dynamics that go on. Within that.
Yes, in fact, even for example, when all this broke out, I mean, the one thing Dorian and I were really worried about is safeguarding our dancers. We have dancers here from France, from Sweden, from Australia, from Italy, and we were just trying to make it work for them, basically. But it was amazing how much they all pitched in. They were just willing to try and help out. One of our dancers actually took over our online marketing. She took a course of social media marketing online and started, handling all our posts to, help our exposure. Another one took an editing course and started editing, clips. So everyone just grouped in together, and even though we were in dancing, everyone got busy doing other things, which was actually quite beautiful in a way.
It's a perfect example of solidarity. I wanted to ask you all as well, if you have a dream project that you would like to realize through these principles of alliance that we're discussing.
A very strong and popular genre film made in Malta about Maltese things or with strong Maltese elements that is wide-reaching and made in collaboration with international partners, a solid co-production. That is a genre film, which by definition they will find their audiences because of a particular identity. Horror is very good for that, has always been and always will be, I think. So I think that would be my dream project. Also because Malta has many elements going for it that can serve as useful identifiers for international audiences that can work in genre film in many ways. And I think that would be a very good place to start, both from the artistic and creative aspect, and both from the kind of more financial and networking side of things.
So this is on the agenda. We can look forward.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, Elyse.
Yes. Before this COVID situation broke out, I was working on a project. It is an exhibition which is basically involves around 9 artists, and which responds directly to narratives that are basically portrayed by particular communities, and which reflects a lot certain identities. And obviously, because of the nature of the project, you had to kind of postpone. So yes, that would be one of my possible dream projects that I actually see it being manifested in the coming months. And we continue working on it because it involves a team of around 24 individuals. Some are artists, some are cultural practitioners. It's a collaboration with a PCO. So I'd really love to see its end result, because even the few months we spent working on it and doing research till now, throughout our absent presence on site, I've received some random messages from these community members, and they were like, "We miss you. Let's continue. When are you coming back? We love the idea. We want to continue working with you." So that is possibly very special, and I'd really love to continue working on it. At this point, it's uncertain when we're going to continue. However, it's in the pipeline. It should be on the way. As a side note, I would also love to see a more formal group of people joining together to actually voice and lobby for the industries as well. I've had multiple discussions over the past few weeks about the possible creation of either an association or a lobby group, whatever it may be. And that is also a dream, because I really believe that the sector really needs it at this point in time, especially when we possibly face an economic crisis or a recession, and the creative industries, as usual, will suffer. So yes, that is like the ultimate dream, that a team comes together to actually voice the concerns and lobby for the sector's and certain basic humanitarian rights that we all deserve. That is like the whole ambitious dream.
Well, that type of lobby group is not, it's not an unattainable dream. Are you, you're definitely working on that one?
I have discussed it quite a number of times with quite a few individuals. Obviously, it entails a lot of time and a lot of volunteering because a structure like that needs a lot of research. Everything has to be weighed. It needs a team of people. It cannot be done by one or two or three individuals. So that's why it's a dream project. Obviously, hopefully, a team of people will come together to actually manifest it, because ultimately, I think we all really need it, and it's very it's needed. We really need it, I believe.
Well, the seed has been planted now, and this is the week for it. Speaking of alliance, perhaps you'll be inundated with volunteers after this podcast goes live. Diane, what about you? Is there a dream project?
There has been a dream project, but we never managed to realize it. I've always wanted to create a sort of triple bill triangle between three companies. Where we all go to each other's company and create a piece, on each other on one team. So I don't know, if we team up with a company in Spain, I would create on the company in Spain, the choreographer from Spain would create on us, and and then we'll go tour the three countries with a triple bill based on one subject, but seeing it, from completely different artists and performers. Logistically, it's quite a big thing, and it's also not cheap, so we haven't managed to realize it, but it's something I would really, really like to do one day.
Yeah, it sounds like a good project. Maybe during these times of less mobility, but don't give up on that. If there was ever a time for solidarity and alliance, it's now, and certainly, in the protection of human rights and public health and democratic freedoms. But in the context of this conversation, what do you think alliance looks like in the arts, both during this COVID-19 crisis and or in its wake? How will we stay together?
Well, it's interesting. It's strange in a way, because it's brought, for example, even in the dance world, it's brought us together in a way which we've never, managed to do before. I've done class with performers from kibbutz. I've done ballet class with Tamara Rojo from her living room, so it's I'm getting insights on companies where I've only managed to see them, in huge theaters. So from that point of view, it's been really interesting. A lot of artists are also showing behind the scenes and creative processes, so it's also a learning curve. I wonder what touring will be like, are we going to shift to a dynamic where we are only going to be able to watch international companies online? Personally, it would be a great pity, if you ask me. I've watched some amazing performances online, but nothing beats, the live magic of seeing it on stage. Say with theater. Having said that, I think especially in Malta, we could look at some sort of cost-sharing techniques. Where there are a lot of artists in very, very similar situations, and we all have, extremely different strengths. I have a degree in banking and finance and management as well, so which is quite random, but
I'll sign you up.
No, but you know what I mean. So I'm sure I could help. I've done accounts freelance before I took this on full time. So I'm sure a sort of bartering of services and artistic exchanges could start happening. When public resources are probably going to be very limited. I think if we look at the pool of resources we have between us as artists, there'll be so many people who have so much to offer, that we could end up saving on a lot of costs that we currently don't want to be incurring,
Yeah, what does it look like for you, Teo? Do you have any predictions or
Well, I would go along with something both Elyse and Diane were saying in terms of what Elyse was saying earlier about lobbying. I think now, because everyone can get to enjoy, things for free and streaming and fill the time that they have or that they're forced to have with, free performances and whatever. I think now is the time to really, show people and to emphasize how artists need to be paid for their work and compensated for their work properly. And that lobbying is a way to make this happen and to ensure this happens. And I think so if we can cream off some of that, abstract solidarity and make it into something a bit more tangible in the long term, I think that would be great. I mean, of course, it's nice to collaborate on creative projects together. It's nice to, have suddenly get used to more accessibility to each other online. Everyone's more comfortable with Zoom now than they were maybe a few weeks ago. But I think the next step would be to really kind of turn that into sort of for lobbying, because even for me, I mean, I'm now involved in a international TV writers room because the producer wanted to create a global writers room. So now we're sort of we've come together to create an anthology TV show and to pitch it to international networks that's inspired by the lockdown thing and so on. But I think, as well as the creative projects, I think it's important to emphasize on our kind of, economic needs. And if we do that together, I think that'll be of course even better.
And as you point out, we're all sort of acquiring new skills at high speed during this lockdown, and a lot of it is digital. But finding a way to be very creative with all of those resources, and not, as everyone is saying, just go back to the way things were. Elyse, can you?
Yes, I would have to agree with what now Diane and Theo have said. And reinforce the aspect that, yes, we really need to lobby to kind of find a reformed way forward. I'm very curious as to what will happen with mobility as well, like residencies. We're also highly dependent on, for example, going abroad to improve professional development, and therefore those have also been kind of put on a stop for now, and it has also affected projects up to a certain point. So I mean, yes, it's been brilliant. The accessibility side of it has been amazing, because as Diane was saying, I've attended conferences I would never have dreamt of attending, and I've been to lectures which were highly unattainable before. However, as they were saying, we actually need to also kind of put a sum to and also stop giving things for free. For example, I mean, obviously there are limitations. So yes, I think, I mean, there are pluses and minuses to everything. Yes, let's continue collaborating. It's a huge plus. However, we also need to find like a concrete way forward to actually, perhaps even with the time we have, lobby for rights and basics basically of what the sector really needs at this point in time.
Great. That's a good note to end on. I think we're all in agreement there. So we're going to go out and take action. Thank you all very much for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been a really lovely conversation. And take care, and hopefully we'll see you all in person very soon.